and was posted on the website at www.hpborough.com and on the bulletin board of Borough Hall, 221 South Fifth Avenue in Highland Park, New Jersey, and has remained continuously posted as required by law. Fire exits are to my right and left of council chambers. And I'm going to ask Jake to lead us in the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's just open us up, people. Hey, roll call. Yes.
Councilmember Stewart.
Here.
Here.
Councilmember Hirsch.
Here.
Here. Councilmember Pistonik.
Here.
Councilmember Vargas.
Here.
Borough Attorney Lamont.
Here.
And Rosa.
Here.
First item is discussion, and it's boards, commission, and committee diversity survey findings. Jake,
All right.
no action will be taken.
I'm gonna just
Okay.
share my screen because Jake does have some slides. I just want to make sure. that we get this all sorted. Give me 1 second. and then we hand it over. Let's see. And then. All you need to do is just click, I think, and you'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Arrows.
Okay, so just to kind of give a primer on what we're doing, what this is and what this is in response to maintain our sustainable Jersey certification, part of the actions you need to do are to figure out diversity and inclusion among your boards and commissions and volunteers and things like that. So the first step in that was to run a survey through our various boards and commissions and kind of come up with a generalized idea of the makeup of our boards and commissions and see maybe where we can start, where we lack and where our strengths are. We did this at first in 2021, where we first got certified for it, and now we're just renewing that certification. So it's a really great opportunity to see if we've made improvements and things like that. So just to give you an idea of what happened, on June 18th, Terry and I hosted the Boards and Commissions Chairs meeting where we debuted the survey and asked the chairs to fill it out. We sent it to the council, and we basically asked everyone to filter it down through their boards and commissions and make sure everybody, or as many people as possible, filled it out. We had 102 responses. We have about 200 people on our boards and commissions, so it's kind of like a 50% response rate. Some boards and commissions definitely filled it out more than others, but that is to say, a lot of the data in here is not to be taken as ironclad as much as it is to start a conversation about what diversity looks like on our boards and commissions. I'm sorry, what?
Which board and commission did really well. We're not gonna wrap people out.
Not right, but just in general, we like.
I thought
Everyone did well.
I thought I wrote it down, but I think safe walking and cycling did pretty well.
In terms of response.
Yes, in terms of
Responses.
response,
They-
right?
No correct answers.
Yes, yes. Good, good.
And then a few others I can't name.
Yeah.
So to kind of start us off, we're going to talk about gender identity. So an important note here is that throughout this presentation, I'm going to be comparing the data we collected to the census data. And the census does not ask about gender identity. They ask sex assigned at birth. So we asked about gender identity. We try to be as inclusive as possible, but I just want to shout that out because it's hard to compare when you have certain statistically significant people either not answering the question or identifying as something other than man or woman. So we have definitely a lot more women serving on our boards and commissions than men. And that is consistent with 2021 as well. Nothing's really changed there. It's kind of the same. So yeah, that's the first attribute. Next, we wanted to look at household income. So just some quick things you'll see here. About 53% of respondents made over $100,000 a year and are among our volunteers, whereas that number is about 40% among the rest of Highland Park. So we know that our boards and commissions definitely skew towards the higher strata of the income distribution. A lot of them, well, that's basically kind of the story there. We know that they skew there, but are definitely the middle and lower incomes are also very well represented on our boards and commissions. And the differences between that and the census data are about 4%, 3 or 2% respectively. Next, we wanted to take a look at home ownership. So who owns their home versus who rents their home. We definitely have renters, a lot of renters in town. And in fact, our renters are overrepresented in Highland Park compared to the rest of the state, which we kind of know because of our proximity to Rutgers. As a matter of fact, I was looking at the census before this, and if you look at the total people that live in town, they ask a question about when did you move here? 16% moved here in the last year, compared to about 8% in towns like Metuchen, comparable towns like Metuchen. So we can tell that we have a kind of transient town with a lot of renters, but definitely our renters are underrepresented on our boards and commissions. Now, this is the only time in this presentation we're gonna see a comparison to 2021, but I just wanted to show you that one of the recommendations in the last survey was that we wanted to see if we can reach out to more renters and get them on our volunteer boards and commissions. And it looks like we've made some progress towards that goal. And that's what this kind of graph shows, where the blue is 2021, the red or orange is 2025. Next, we looked at race and, what are the makeup? We didn't want to see an overwhelming majority of white or Caucasians on our boards and commissions. Now, we have 78%, and that is definitely an overrepresentation compared to the town. But the caveat there is, again, another recommendation in the last survey was that we try to reach out to other groups and try to get them to join. The last survey, we had about 84% white or Caucasian. So we've definitely seen diversification over the past 4 years. And there needs to be more of them. We also looked at age, trying to see if we had an equal distribution among different age groups represented. Our town is pretty even, right? The graph on the left and the right don't include that under 30 is controlled for like 17-year-olds and under. So even controlling for that, there's still about a third people living here under 30, but only 3% on our boards and commissions. So I think that there is an area there where we can attract younger people to volunteer for us and kind of develop that connection with the town as well. There's a lot of people, obviously, as you can see, in the 50 and over category, and we'll get to kind of how long people have served, how long they've lived here, which I think kind of colors in that data a little more. So that's this slide. So as you can see, an overwhelming majority of people on our boards and commissions have lived here for 10 or more years, which means we have a strong sense of community among our boards and commissions. I think people that really are dedicated to the town, and we have a healthy distribution of people serving different strata of, have you served on a board or commission 1 to 3 years or 10 years? It seems like it's pretty equally people filtering through the system, serving and then leaving. So I think that really represents a good amount of people dedicating their time to helping out. We also wanted to take a look at different neighborhoods. It comes up a lot in meetings that we talk about, which side of town is benefiting or what are we working towards on each side of town. So we definitely have majority of people living on the south side of town, and this is mostly consistent with what I've seen data, well, mostly consistent with the census data from how many people live on the south side versus how many people live on the north side. It's pretty comparable to what is represented on our boards and commissions. So that was definitely good to see.
So we represent.
Yeah. The triangle was definitely underrepresented. I kind of used different census tract data to figure out about 16% of Highland Park's population lives in the triangle. So there could be more work done there to kind of reach out to people that live there as well.
What was the number in triangle again?
2, which is an increase from the last time, but only by 100%. So we also asked about language and education, just to give you an idea. Other than English, the most prevalent languages were Spanish, Chinese, Gujarati, Hebrew, and Korean. Other languages included Turkish, German, French, Czech, and Hindi as well. So again, broad, these are languages spoken at home. So broad, a lot of diversity in terms of, what language people are speaking in those commissions. Our education, this is also kind of expected. We have 83% of our respondents had at least a bachelor's degree. Of those, 58 with an advanced degree, divided 37.3 for master's and 20.6 for a PhD. So very, very well educated population. And I was speaking to Terry before this, and it seems consistent to when we've collected this data over the past 20 years or so. It's always that, a lot of very educated.
And the census data there.
Proximity to Rutgers as well.
Really impressive.
Yeah, and a very
Numbers are even higher.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Very-
That's a high percentage. That's really.
highly educated boards and commissions is expected when a lot of them are highly specialized and talk about things that might be in your field and things like that.
That's really neat. Like,
So just kind of wrapping it all up, I think that we've done a lot of work to increase diversity on our boards and commissions, but more can be done. We're still, as you saw, overwhelmingly white. And I think that among a lot of recommendations we can make, I think more inroads can be made with different social groups, faith groups, to kind of understand their needs, the issues they're facing, and also seek new volunteers. As well, we should also be looking at recruiting younger volunteers as well. I think that generally speaking, younger people skew towards, for example, renting their home versus owning it. And I think there's a lot of legislation discussed among our boards and commissions that affect homeowners and renters differently. So just having those voices can really help make the conversation a little more robust. Not only that, but younger volunteers, working with your town gives you a stronger attachment to your community and the town, and they tend to stay here and live here longer. Just kind of building that social fabric can be very helpful. And then lastly, just to kind of wrap up the survey portion of it, I just wanted to go over, so we had a little bit of trouble. I said we only had about a 50% response rate. We had some privacy concerns among respondents who, more than one person reached out to me more than one time, talking about what's happening with my data, how are you collecting my data? And even after showing them my screen, like this is all I can see, they still either didn't fill it out or they wanted to hand me a piece of paper, which was fine. And then I just put the answers in myself. So things like that, I think, especially with a question like household net income, which was the most unanswered question. I only had about 90 answers to that out of 102. So the most unanswered question, that's kind of like an intimate detail that you maybe don't want to talk about. So I think it impacts our data as well. So I think that to complete the survey next time, to get that response rate up and to alleviate any privacy concerns, there are maybe other ways of communicating the survey we can look at to try and make people a little more comfortable. We're also missing a question on disability status. And I think that data would have actually been really helpful to talk about accessibility, because diversity without accessibility doesn't say very much. So I think there's a conversation we had there, and I think that would impact how you look at some of the other questions and the other data. And then lastly, on the language question, it was just one thing I just wanted to say is I made it like you could select multiple if you spoke multiple languages at home. Whereas I think the next time to get more precise data, I would have rather had it than primary language spoken at home and only been a one response. So we could really get a picture of different languages that are spoken among the volunteers. So that's a survey. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them, but that's kind of where I kind of want to start this conversation moving forward about how we look at recruiting for our boards and commissions and things like that.
If you can share that with us,
Yeah.
because I'm particularly interested in getting more younger people in the triangle.
Mhm.
It's how we tap into that area.
Yeah. Definitely.
For what it's worth, published academic papers with less than 50% response rate. I don't think she's worried.
I worry that maybe some of the people who wouldn't respond or may not have the time to respond may
Yes.
skew into one of the
Well,
categories, you
yeah,
know,
I
it
mean,
might,
yeah, but
that's
there's-
always the worry, but thank you. for
But there's a
the
bunch of tests you can run to see.
Yeah. Yeah. And-
50% is pretty good.
And and to speaking to that, a lot of the data is more or less what I expected. There weren't too many surprises. It was mostly in line with what I was looking at from the last survey with some slight improvements, as well as the census data that I was looking at as well.
And we're also living in a precarious time where people don't want to overshare information.
Exactly. There's different things going on.
The other thought, because I was thinking about it after he gave me the dry run earlier, and I was thinking, the other thing that might affect, we do have, as you guys know, some boards and commissions that are much more active than others. And I have a feeling that some of those unanswered were the less active members of those boards that were kind of trying to reactivate. Because I was thinking like, why? And like, I bet you a lot of them are ones that, which is also something we can work on to kind of touch them
Yeah.
more frequently during the year.
Mhm.
I think Matt.
Oh,
Thank you, Council President. I was just saying, and I think you know this, certainly you know this, because he's a president system in New Jersey. Thank you. Is one of the actions that we can qualify for is the extent of our outreach to. We started in earnest a little bit last year. We had some preliminary meetings with some of the property owners and leasing, some leasing offices, and Orchard Gardens, treetops, the follow-up there, just with everything, we need to do a lot more. And obviously there's a transition in leadership too, but that's definitely, so that
Yeah.
could dovetail into some of the goals of getting
Exactly.
renters.
Anything else that you think that we would be able to do, like if we send letters to some of our boards and commissions, just checking in on them,
Yeah, I
That'd
do
be a
think.
beneficial tool that, could regenerate some people who haven't been so active.
That, and I think there's a certain level of like distrust. As I said, like trying to get over that privacy concern, for example, over some of these questions. I tried to model the questions and the answers after census, or the American Community Survey, which is just the census more frequently. But even then, I think there were some hurdles that maybe increased communication would help with, kind of demystifying what we're doing, because maybe I could have explained it better what I was doing or something. Just working
I'll
towards
draw
that
something
end.
that I'll probably send out to everybody,
Mhm.
just to touch base with them.
Yeah.
Stephanie?
So can we add, like, you said it's a paper form, can we add that form with our volunteer application and say it's optional to fill, like an optional area? Because then we would have,
Yeah, I mean, I think if we had new recruits and they wanted to fill it out, we could continue to collect the data. I would say that before doing that, I would want to redo the form to include, for example, that question on disability status and try to, I would definitely have to work with the commission on universal access to try and, because the wording of the question was more accessible, but there's definitely certain things I would change about the survey first.
It's a great idea, because then when I meet with people, then that form would be there and they can just fill it out. Norma, you had a question?
I had a similar, whether we can generate a paper form.
Yeah, we can definitely do that, because you can
Yeah.
make it a printable.
Yeah. Were we collecting email addresses when, so it was, I don't.
Yeah,
recall.
that kind of is where one of my issues came in, was that
Right.
people were like, how can you say you're not collecting my data when my email is at the top of the screen? Because when you
Right.
go into Google Forms,
Right.
it knows what account you're using.
Right,
So there's a concern, okay, well, if you're not collecting my data, somebody knows that this is me filling out this form.
right.
So kind of working, I don't know, and I don't have a clear answer on this, but working towards that end of align people's privacy concerns.
Perhaps maybe another survey medium, because I
Yeah.
know a lot of people are suspicious of Google.
That's definitely,
So
that's
maybe
definitely
another.
Probably a line of people that you'll never be able to satisfy. So,
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? It's, if you're,
Yeah.
yeah.
Terry?
I mean, 90 out of 102 sounds pretty good. For income, for
it's
establishing
the
income.
issue I was having was that that's a whole 10%. You know what I'm saying? Which theoretically could be its own like slice of the pie. So it was definitely not anything that like affected how I saw the data in any way, but just if I wanted a more complete picture, or I was worried that certain people didn't fill out the survey at all, didn't reach out at all because they didn't even bother. That was one thing I was concerned about last.
Okay. Terry had a question?
So it was more of just a follow-up on your idea, which was maybe after, because usually the process, we vet the candidates for the boards. I wouldn't want them to think that how they answer that survey is, is your
Right,
gateway into,
right.
but after they've been selected and you send them their nice letter that Jen actually helped you get out, that could be like, we really appreciated it.
That's
Here's
true. I
the
could
link,
add that to
here's
my
the
letter.
link, or here's the paper version, whatever you're most comfortable with. And maybe a Survey Monkey has a way to protect anonymity in a way
Yeah,
that
right.
Google doesn't, or something like that. So
Yeah.
those are all really good ideas.
No, yeah, that's a good idea.
Even
Just attach it to the letter that they normally get, say.
Maybe, because that's what they're already in,
They already know the
regardless of the
letter that I
answers of
sent out, right.
this survey.
Mhm.
And then that maybe, well, I was gonna say some of the many cultural events.
Just keep in mind with the breeze and
Yeah,
the.
I can't
you gotta
hear.
Speak up.
When you're having a conversation, the person sitting next to you, we can't hear.
No, I'm worried. with
She
the
was,
family.
she was saying with the cultural events that we have, that probably one way we can tap into and get more information.
Just good luck.
And although most typical loan applications, job applications, you normally put your race before you even interview. But I know we're
Consider that. We could absolutely.
Yeah.
There's always a disclaimer.
I know, but they can put, I prefer not to answer.
I don't know if I'm crazy about that. I'd like to know more about that, actually. Kind of like what the criteria of the application. Because that may be seen as a deterrent depending on who's going to pick.
Well, they're
Good
separating
point.
application from, we're just trying to collect data.
Yeah.
That's the key.
That's why
And
it's like
that's always my.
after
They're
advice.
already been
Yeah.
selected.
Well, they'd already been
Once I
Yeah.
interview with them, I have this letter that they get and blah, blah, blah.
Got it.
And then that would be attached to the letter that they can fill
Yeah.
out. So it's not so intrusive. It's not like you have to answer this to serve,
And we have other events with our boards and commissions in the year. We had like in December, we had the holiday
Mhm.
appreciation party thing. I think there are various touch points where if this were an ongoing thing and we were collecting the data on an ongoing basis, we could kind of say, don't forget to fill out the survey. if you haven't already." So,
Those events help to build trust, right? Because you're engaging with volunteers, the volunteers are engaging with each other. So maybe they won't feel like you're collecting their information for other purposes. It's just community engagement and building that trust and relationship.
Okay.
Nicely done.
Any other questions? Thank you so much, Jay. Thank you so much, Terry. Good job.
Just one. All right, I'm
All right.
going to stop the share. I just realized we've been sharing that one screen for a long time, and sorry, I'm one person who's at home.
Stare at the back of my head.
And now we go to, okay, now we go to S 3240, that's a Senate bill, and Assembly Bill 84369, state legislation that would allow 16 and 17-year-olds to vote in local school board elections. And we had sent, they had sent out the information, so hopefully everyone had an opportunity to read the text of the letter, plus there was an email sent in regards to what Newark had done, Montclair, and where the state is. It's time to have discussions on this.
So if I may, just from a legal perspective, so in reading the law, there's a couple of things. So other towns have passed ordinances to support this, but the law at the very end is actually fairly emphatic. The municipality doesn't have to do anything to implement. This is a state provision. The Secretary of State, who's the Lieutenant Governor, was authorized and ordered under this bill to create registration forms for 16 and 17-year-old voters, to create a paper ballot that is only for those voters for school board elections. So really, you have the option you can pass resolutions, you can pass an ordinance if you'd like to codify that rule, but you can also, if you so choose, just rely on the state law and then just look to enact it. The second part of it is how that actually goes, and that candidly, Mayor, I'm still working through trying to figure out like what the registration form looks like. Like I was on their website now and it looks like it links to the same registration. And they're trying to figure out like what kind of IDs that you need. So people may have to get an ID if you're 16 or 17 years old, if you don't already have a driver's license, some identity. But you can vote in school board elections under the state law if you're 16 years old, but only school board elections.
So would that have any impact? The state says that, but would it have to be when the school board election is going to have to be concurrently with school board elections? How would that work?
They would vote in the school board election. It's not a separate election. They are registered to vote. They go through the same portals. It's you register in the same fashion that you would register if you were over the age of 18 and you were registering to vote. And you vote in the same election. So when there's a school board election, 16-year-olds will be able to go in when they go and I'm speculating a little bit now based on what the law says. But my reading of it is you walk in, you hand in your ID, they'd hand you a ballot. And if you're under 16, your ballot will only have school board elections and you'll cast a vote in the same election as everybody else.
Jason?
The clarifying question, are you speaking about the bill in terms of what it authorizes? Or are you talking about current law in terms of?
Well, the bill was signed in. So the governor, yeah,
There's a
exactly.
Senate and Assembly bill.
Yeah.
Oh, right, it was.
It's already been
Oh, it
done.
was?
Oh, yeah, it was been signed into law and Newark's already implemented an ordinance. In fact, Governor Murphy in March this year was in Newark with Tammy Murphy doing a registration drive to
Yes.
encourage 16-year-olds to register to vote.
I think
Okay,
that was
work.
for primaries, wasn't that for registration for primary elections?
Well, that's what you always do, right? So when you register, we'll do campaigns to get people to register because the primary is coming up and we want you to be able to vote in the primary. But if you register to vote, you can vote in the primary and then you can vote in the general election. So,
Okay,
Yeah.
so the bill that is referenced is not the law yet, so I just wanted to be clear.
Right, I agree.
Right, yeah.
I love that this hasn't moved out of committee
It's
yet.
not,
Yeah, this hasn't moved out of
So
committee.
it's the Senate Bill 3240 is still in committee
correct.
and Assembly Bill
It's
Yeah,
not.
4369.
So how
Yeah.
did North do
And-
it?
They passed their own ordinance.
They didn't, they did so by ordinance. The city of Newark put an ordinance.
Did they pass an ordinance to endorse the legislation or to actually implement? elected
Implement
votes?
in their school system in Newark.
They did.
So their high school system did it.
So in Newark, 16 and 17-year-olds voted in the last election.
I think it
And I
was
don't know,
17.
and by the way, I believe, and I have to now go
I think it
back
was
through.
17.
I believe that the bill was passed because they again, on the state on the state page, there's a student voter registration and voting on the state's page. So the state has been authorized to implement this.
I believe, respectfully, I believe that is the legislation that allows primary voters to vote, to register to vote in the primary if they are going to be 18 for the general election.
Okay.
Yeah, this bill.
I'm diving into it, so
Yeah,
you may be
yeah.
right. I'm reading everything, but again, I'm looking at the same thing the mayor was looking at, which is the governor's out there promoting it in the same fashion, and it was a pretty big hoopla that we
Yeah,
did.
they did.
So in New Jersey, you can vote as a 17-year-old in a general primary, in regular election, if you're going to be 18 by.
In November, right?
So
Oh.
that's,
Okay.
there's a
One-
difference. This is just about.
Hale,
voting.
and then you.
Me?
Yeah.
Okay, so my questions, and maybe this, we have to figure out whether this is a lot or not. Do the kids who are voting in the Board of Election or Board of Education, do they have to go to public school? Or to a private school? I mean, it doesn't matter what school they go to, they can vote.
No, it's no different than from its most basic core. And again, so I'm reading the bill, and so we're still going to work through this, but the way that the bill is written, you would vote in whatever the primary or whatever the general election was for the school board for your area. So you can't go to, it's not a question of whether or not you attend the school, it's a question of whether or not you are a resident in the district, and then you're voting within that district.
Which makes sense. I just wanted to make sure that there wasn't any sort of attachment. One of the initial things is the reason to give 16 and 17-year-olds the reason to vote is they're voting on people who control their lives. for
Yes.
the students in their year, right?
Yeah.
So-
Now, if you're attending private schools, you may see a drop off in those students because they may feel like it doesn't affect. Although those students may say, well, if I vote in the regular school board elections, what the public school boards do has a very much an effect on what private school boards tend to do in terms of policies and direction. So,
Right, and to be fair, the Newark election, less than 4% voted. Okay, but the other questions that I had are around what happens in potential campaigns. In Highland Park, and let me take one step back. I really like this idea. I want 16 and 17-year-olds to vote and vote often. I think it's a fantastic thing to get people into. But I do think that it's important to ask things like, can they donate? Do they have to get permission to vote? Do they have to get parental permission to do? Do they have to do their parents have to give them permission to campaign? Do their parents have to give them, can someone who is campaigning for office, are there presumably restrictions on them talking to someone who's under 18?
so the bill as written, as I'm reading it now, what's been proposed, does not place restrictions other than to say 16-year-olds are now eligible to vote and then authorize the Secretary of State to make the changes necessary to enact that.
Okay.
Your questions would then all fall under any other applicable laws that are there. So as of right now, a 16-year-old in this state has the right to work. You have to get your parents' permission, you have to get working papers, and so that's what I can, right? But they get a paycheck and they're,
Right, but they have to get their parents' permission before they can go to work. They have to get their parents' permission before they can vote.
no, under the law, they are authorized with, if it passes as is, they would be authorized under the law to vote. They, to nowhere in there does it require them to have parental permission to vote. And in all fairness, that would be a hindrance because part of the issue with children voting has always been that they're easily influenced, right? So if we pass a law that says, well, you can vote, but you need your parents' permission, well, then the first thing someone's going to say is, well, then they're only going to get permission if they vote for the person that the parents want them to vote for. So the idea is, no, you're giving students the ability to go vote based on their needs and their own research. Because in fairness, they're the ones who are directly affected by what the school board does.
Right.
So
The bigger question for me is donations. Are there restrictions on underage donations? I think there's restrictions in the general election.
I think I'd have to go back and look at specifically the restrictions for 16-year-olds, but whatever those restrictions are would be maintained regardless. This bill does not affect their ability to donate or not, whatever the state laws are.
Right.
So running's an interesting one. This doesn't address running. I think you have to be 18 to run. It does not address that specifically as running for a school board, although that's an interesting concept that if you can vote in the election.
18-year-olds can't be president, but they can vote for them too. It probably falls under a similar kind of guideline. I do just want to say that I would imagine that.
One second. Councilmember George, he had his hand up before you.
I think a lot of these questions are the interesting part about the fundamental purpose of it, which is to engage students in civics and in voting for what is going on in your community and keeping that engagement. And I think these are secondary questions. I think they should go with be on the next agenda. I think it's time to do it. I don't think these questions are relevant for the passage of it. I think that parents may want those answers, and some of them there are not any answers for parents. And that maybe is the way it should be. There are regulations that talk about donations and whether a 16-year-old can solicit or accept it or have a bank account to do it. But all the other questions, parental permission, that's deliberately why the law is written, is to engage students and allow them to grow up and mature in their own process. I think we put the ordinance on and let questions answer themselves.
One second. Councilmember Hirsch.
Thank you. Very sorry, Councilman George.
He had his hand up before you. You were next.
I was just going to say that the law is written is very straightforward. It's got some good kind of support from all points around the state as far as co-sponsorship. But I would imagine this is something that we need to explore. Is what did Newark do in the freestanding ordinance outside of this law, and then how would how would ELAC and how would the, how would the LG,
So that's where I say I'm still doing some research, and the mayor and I spoke briefly on this, and I'm kind of picking at the Newark ordinance itself pretty much just takes the last couple of bullet points from the proposed law. You have to be 16, it's just a basic requirement. It's like 4 bullet points in the ordinance that just effectively expands it to 16-year-olds. Now, I took a cursory look through your code, and I don't see a specific ordinance that relates to school board voting. But that's fine. If we were to implement this as an ordinance now in anticipation of law, we would just implement that section as well, which would just be, it could just be a standalone, kind of section, but it would have the same requirements. What I don't know is how they implemented it, and that's what I would have to check.
Councilmember,
Jason.
Oh, no.
Is it like hot potato? Everyone keeps.
I'm having a track.
It was you, and then,
Yeah, I was.
and then it was, right.
Oh, okay.
So can parents prevent their kids from voting? Can a parent can prevent a 16-year-old from doing a lot of things? Parent can prevent the kid from voting.
Talking about under the law or in general?
Oh.
So under the law, there's nothing in that proposed law, and I'm assuming in the ordinance, right? There would be nothing that would prevent a parent from legally stopping. That being said, it's a 16-year-old kid. So I can't, if a kid says, I want to go out tonight, I want to go vote, and the parent says, too bad, we're going to your grandparents' house 4 hours away, deal with it. I don't know there's nothing I can do.
No state.
Yeah, and what I don't know, and kind of your question sort of anticipates a challenge after the fact. I would have to wait and see if, at some point, I imagine that some parent will tell some students, no, I don't want you, or if you don't vote for this, you can't. And some student will take some action against that.
And just be very clear, because I bet the student is going to sue a parent, or a parent is going to sue a kid for that. But is there any? Do we have any state? Is there any?
It's just a.
No, that's a private. That would be a private action between 2 people. From our end.
This is Highland Park, it may happen.
No, but from the municipalities end.
National.
I don't get, we don't weigh into that the same way that we don't weigh into, my husband is mad at me because I didn't vote for the president that I want. We don't get involved in those conversations. I'm not saying they don't happen. I'm not saying that there's not a problem to it. It's just not something that we have no authority or ability to do.
And then real quick, I'm still not 100% sure if we're going to be voting on supporting the state ordinance for creating our own.
So
I think that we were going, the request was for a town ordinance to support school board elections, 16 and 17-year-olds to vote
That's
in
what the
town.
kids came doing.
Yes.
So right now it'd be in order. The state bill as passed says the municipality doesn't have to, but it hasn't, to Matthew's point, I have to kind of look through, I think it's still in the process of going through. So right now it would be an ordinance first. We could always write the ordinance that says, but however such ordinance will always comply with whatever
As it
any
is
revised
now,
state
every-
statutes or
whatever
registry.
State statute
Yeah.
trumps everything else locally. Okay, Stephanie?
Yes, I support this idea as well, but is there any cost to the borough? Like, do you have to move?
So those are the, when I say looking at how New York's implement, I'm still trying to get my head around it.
Okay.
Because assumingly, yeah, if you have to create separate ballots, there'd be a cost of creating ballots. If you have to do, that would be your cost. Hypothetically, if a primary or a general election for the school board took place today, you already have a building allocated, you already have mechanisms there, you already have staff there to take those. So if there were just separate paper ballots for students that were 16 and 17, if they could go and fill out a paper ballot and then put it in a box, your cost is the cost of the ballot and the cost of counting, which is probably not a lot when you consider that. How many students do we have as we just went through all of that process for
Over 16 voting, potential voting. maybe?
Yeah, and it sort of creates a non-issue, which is,
Maybe about 200, if not that much, less than 200.
and if all of them voted, and that's a great problem to have, if so many students are signing up and voting and taking advantage of it, that it's costing us more money than we anticipated. It's a wonderful engagement,
Absolutely.
Okay,
but
so-
I think the cost would be minimal.
Okay, so no calls for like an additional machine, separate
Oh, no,
machine,
I
or
don't-
the same machine?
Can't envision.
I haven't seen a requirement that you need to have a voting machine.
Okay,
So, and now when if the state enacts this, I'm assuming they would, then it would go through the regular voting process, into which case it would transition to the ballots, and I'm assuming it would transition to the machines as well. But for right now, I think you're just paper ballots, and your paper ballots with, I mean, I don't know how many folks are running for Board of Ed here. 3 names, 4 names. If you only have 20 students registered, you need 20 ballots. I mean, it's-
Jason?
Yes, I was just gonna say that I support this policy change to allow 16, 17 folks to vote in school board elections. And like Matt kind of like alluded to, like where I was gonna go with this was that I think we should do both a resolution supporting these bills, which, we're still confirming it looks like they have not been passed. They haven't moved out of committee yet. So I would do a resolution to support, encourage the state to adopt them. But I would also separately, I guess, like confirmation that there is in fact legal authority. It does seem like Newark has went ahead and done this, I guess, under the auspices of the home rule authority. And I'm okay with proceeding with an ordinance to actually just go ahead and do that absent the legislation at the state level. I would just mention, especially since our other council is here, I don't think in the situation that Hale referenced earlier, my colleague, Councilman Hale referenced earlier.
It's a little too casual. Yeah.
So professional.
Well,
Between the two
that-
masks. But we have, I wouldn't be concerned about a situation involving a parent, a kid litigating, but I do think theoretically, since there isn't this like authority in state law, potentially, it seems like Newark may have not had any issues, but if someone wanted to challenge the constitutionality of our ability to pass this ordinance absent the state legislation, we could become another test case theoretically, like with we have dealt with in other areas. But I feel comfortable enough probably just moving forward and allowing it. I think it's good policy.
I think that's always going to be a risk with these kind of things. There hasn't been a challenge yet to New Works. So if we're the 3rd or 4th one to do it, but the first one to get a challenge, I guess stranger things have happened. But at the same time, I'm kind of going through it, and again, and I'm kind of just leaning into all of this. I'm not totally sure what the constitutional challenge would be here. You know what I'm saying? The state set I would argue that the current voting age is the ceiling. You know what I'm saying? So.
Would it stop a lawsuit from saying we exceeded our authority?
Well, it's a local board election.
And it's
So
an
it's-
ordinance, it's an ordinance,
Yeah.
local ordinance.
So local ordinance for a local board.
Okay, Terry?
I just wanted to say, thank you for raising that point, Jason, because that was my concern, is that we might attract some attention.
Attention that we don't
And which is, in this case, it might be a good kind of thing, because it shows some momentum and support for the initiative. I don't want to underplay, while it's not a cost, like it's going to be dollars that we have to buy ballot money, get printed. The figuring out of all this, because whatever, we can look at what Newark did, but we may or may not think it fits for our needs, isn't nothing. Aaron's time, Jen's time, and how does that, my big question is like, okay, so we have these votes, how does the county who counts them reconcile, add those to the total to know who won the board of election? I don't know, I'm sure there's an answer, we'll figure it out, but it is a lot to do administratively, but it does sound surmountable because our numbers are so small. But it just, I if we decide to go that, I think we should fully vet that aspect of it before we rush to introduce that. And not just figure it out.
I would tend to agree, because we also need to have a conversation with the school, because we have not had a
Yeah,
conversation
good
with
point.
them. And as you mentioned, now I wrote county on my list, I need to have a conversation with the county board of elections and say, whatever.
Yeah, but in general, I have zero problem here. I
If there's only 3 towns in the
thoughts that came
500 and
across,
something
and I just,
towns in the state have done
yeah.
this.
I just wanted to make sure that we talked this one.
On the list, on the list. The county and the school board I have on the list. Councilmember Hirsch.
Thank you, Mayor. I did just want to say that this, that I would also support, a resolution supporting the law, the proposed law. But then I would also support moving forward on crafting an ordinance that we can look at and vet and ask questions, and that may take some time.
Mhm.
As I think we do, I think we should slow walk that a little bit so we can answer these questions.
Legislation
I think want to thank the advocates as well.
Councilman.
I think we may have some time too, because correct me if I'm wrong, but the school board elections are in April. They move into November.
Yeah, they're all, everything is in one now.
We voted
We
years
have
ago.
less time than I thought we would, but we have some time.
We do have some time. And because I will need some time to have a conversation with the school, I will need some time to have a conversation with the county.
Oh, it probably is closer to 2026. So when you factor by the time, two separate readings of the ordinance, plus the time to do that. And then you would need time to now create the ballots, register people, the whole 9 yards. I think when you factor in the 60 days plus that time period, you're like, if we put it on the thing tonight, you might be able to get it done by November. But I think the chances are it's a resolution while we work through this and it's passed, and then the next election cycle is then we'll get it.
I was just gonna advocate for that. I would support both.
Advocate for.
I would support both the resolution and an actual ordinance, but after hearing the discussion, I do think it makes sense to do the resolution as fast as possible. Do that. But I do think there's some things that we want to knock out an ordinance and make sure that we've got that. So maybe not concurrently.
One more thing, remember that used to be a thing? The law also, the legislature doesn't go back into session until until November. So the chances of this law passing are slim, but it gives us an opportunity, I think, to
On
also,
this session.
and to engage with our reps and, and also, get more people on board.
Absolutely.
And just to pick back off that, like build momentum going into the lame duck session, but there will be a flurry of legislative activity. And I think we have a decent chance of passing.
So that's where I was gonna go about it. If you were gonna pass this, that's actually the first time to do it.
Yes.
You have a governor going out.
Yeah, they're gonna wanna make it happen quickly.
Right.
It might very well go through this evening. Any other discussion? Okay, so my takeaway is I'm gonna have a conversation with the school. I'm gonna have a conversation with the county, and we're looking at a reso and a possible ordinance that we all can, something will be crafted, we all can look at and more discussions. Cool. All right, and now it's time for public comments. 21 minutes total, 3 minutes per speaker. Members from the audience attending will be heard in person, followed by those on Zoom.
So thank you guys for that discussion. Student Congress really appreciates the discourse on this, as that's been something we've worked on all year. So personally myself, I know Highland Park. I've grown up here my entire life, went through the public school systems just up until this month when I graduated. So I've seen this town. I think this town is something that stands out as a town that's very civically engaged, as a town that's kind of almost a town that represents opportunity, that represents this. So I think by passing this ordinance, it would be a very strong showing for this town to continue to show this town's progression and innovation, especially the town council. So the town ordinance, what we're coming here to advocate for is passing an individual town ordinance. We would support both ideas that's been brought up. But the reason we want individual town ordinance is because when S 3420, I believe it was introduced, it was introduced to the floor on May of 2024. This was an issue that Student Congress started talking about at the beginning of the school year, which was the fall of 2024, and still no action has been taken at the state level at this. So that's why now at the end of the school year, we came here to ask for individual action from the town council. Because that's something that the state hasn't been making much progress on. Like you said, it's Newark, Montclair, these three other towns have set the precedent. So we do think this is something that is realistic for this town council. We would greatly appreciate if you did it. Just inside the school system, there's about 250 to 300 kids that represent this demographic of 16 to 17-year-olds. So that's about 300 people that you would be enfranchising with more rights. So we think that is a very big issue, and we think it's a pretty easy issue for this town council to deal with and to pass. Thank you.
Anyone on Zoom? One more person attending this
Person
person.
first, and that'll give me a chance to
Okay.
this.
I am Dan Malevnik at 216 Graham Street, Highland Park, and I'm advisor of the Student Congress. And I just want to say thank you for this discussion. I think it's empowering for our students. Just the fact that you're having this dialogue, and it's a very thoughtful dialogue, and you brought up, you know, an issue that I hadn't thought of. I never thought that parent, that litigation issue, that could, don't want to give it any more wind, but the bottom line is, I understand all of the logistics that you have to think through, and so this has been enlightening and also encouraging. So very excited about the promotion of civic virtue. Thank you.
No attendees on Zoom, ma'am.
Any other? Seeing none, seeing no further, may I have a motion to close public participation? Roll call.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yes.
All right. So we had a spirited discussion, so we know what our takeaway is, so that section is closed. And now we're gonna move into executive session. We have two. One litigation, Botian versus Highland Park, and discussion privilege communication. May I have a motion to go into executive session? Roll call. Roll call.
Yes.
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 President Kim Cho Han? Yes.
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 Right. I know that the wind is like, we don't want to close the door.
Do you understand?
Yeah.
Wait a minute, I gotta close out of the Zoom.
Okay, yeah, close that out, close the door.
I know, well, I had to get sucked right into
We
it.
will not be returning to this meeting. This closes, it finalizes the meeting for tonight. Thank you.
1 second.